Hi, I'm Shan Wu with a Undercolor of Law analysis of the Trump nominee for Attorney General Pam Bondi. She is the former Florida Attorney General, and she's now gone through her Senate confirmation hearings, so let's set forth just what are the dangers she poses as the head of the nation's law firm. Most of you already know she's a longtime Trump defender. She was one of his lawyers in the first impeachment trial, traveled to New York to support him during his trial there, and most importantly, I think, faced an ethics probe for personally asking Trump for a $25,000 campaign donation, even as her office was considering whether to join New York State in suing Trump University. After the check came in, her office surprisingly did not join the action against Trump University. During her confirmation hearing, she was pressed about whether she will prosecute Trump regime's enemies and other aspects of whether she can really be independent and stand up and say no to Trump. She hemmed and hawed about how she will uphold the law, doing the usual MAGA thing, claiming that it was actually Biden's DOJ that had an enemies list, and sort of forgetting all the talk about an enemies list, including Kash Patel's actual enemies list. But as usual, they want to turn things around, and so she's saying that when she takes office as the Attorney General, there will not be an enemies list. She will bring the DOJ back to actually doing things without favor and fear. So really, the Biden's DOJ had an enemies list? If only, right? She called special counsel Jack Smith, this is in a previous interview, not in their confirmation hearing, I wish she'd done this in her confirmation hearing, she called Jack Smith a, quote, rabid dog in interviews. And she's promised to investigate the investigators. We may recall how well that worked for John Durham's special counsel probe, where he spent, I think, 3 to 5 years looking at the Mueller investigation. Mostly he spent that time traveling around the world, investigating with Bill Barr, having steak dinners and fine brandy or wine with Barr. But I'm digressing. So she's promised to investigate the investigators, and she refused during the confirmation hearing to rule out investigating Jack Smith. Among the many controversial things she said, just let me say that on that answer alone, I would say she is grossly unqualified to be the Attorney General of the United States. Because while it may be standard confirmation nonsense, particularly for judges, to say, I'm keeping an open mind, I can't comment on something that's not before me, blah, blah, for her to suggest that Jack Smith potentially needs investigating, or she has an open mind to that, is really to say that A.G. Garland must be investigated. I know there are those of you who think he should be investigated anyway, but that Garland should be investigated for having allowed DOJ to look at Trump's crimes or alleged crimes, that he should be investigated for having appointed Jack Smith, and really anyone who worked at DOJ on the case, including, of course, the FBI agents, the career prosecutors, the judge who oversaw the case in D.C. All of these processes would have to be considered questionable or corrupt that need review. So this case went through tons of litigation, right? Lawyers for Trump argued various issues all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court didn't say there's something wrong, illegal with what Jack Smith's doing. Sure, they considered arguments about, does the case have legal merit? Is there something technically wrong with trying to charge the president? None of that goes to investigating the investigators. Those are just legal issues. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's just preposterous that you can actually, in good faith, open up an investigation. It's not just one instance of prosecutorial discretion. There have been so many layers of checks and reviews of that case in particular. Forget about a DOJ. Grand jury indicted, judges approved, all the way up to Supreme Court. Nobody has any concerns or evidence, much less evidence, that there's something that deserves investigating. Anybody who has a, quote, open mind to the idea that you need to investigate the Jack Smith special counsel team does not have an open mind to doing anything except what the regime tells them to do. Now, of course, the answer that got her the most publicity most focus was her refusing to say that Biden had won the 2020 election. The reality is that you can have an opinion if you want. You can believe what you want to believe about the election. No problem. You can talk about it. It's your First Amendment right, no matter how ridiculous and unfounded it is. But in my opinion, you cannot run the Justice Department if you can't say that Trump lost the election. In other words, if you can't say that that election process was legitimate, it doesn't make any sense. How can you be running the enforcement aspect of the federal government when you think that there was something that was illegal about that election? It just does not make any sense at all. But I have to say, as an aside, I think there were some good questions by the Democrats during the confirmation hearing. There's been a lot of criticism. They didn't follow through. I tend to agree. I mean, questions at confirmation hearings are not the best. Some of it's performative. Some of it is the questioners not being able to really lock people down into yes, no. It's just not a very good scenario for really getting the truth out. And that's a different broadcast, the whole problem with our confirmation hearings today. The realistic outcome here, just so we're all clear, is she will likely be confirmed. One of the good things in terms of strategy by the Trump administration is if you put up so many people that appeared ridiculously unqualified, by comparison, some are going to get in. She's going to probably get in. Kash Patel, maybe. Hegseth, maybe. But you can put up Tulsi Gabbard for a position on national security, and there'll be so much attention paid to that other folks are going to get in. So the votes are there, and she's likely going to be confirmed. So let's break down just what are the real worries, not just for Jack Smith, but for the people that she's going to lead, the more than 100,000 employees that work at the DOJ. Here's what a current lawyer at DOJ said in a New York Times opinion piece about what her concerns are. In that opinion piece, I can summarize it for you, some of the fears: being relocated to Alaska, meaning, oh, sorry, we're not going to get rid of your job, but now you have to go work someplace else entirely that's like really inconvenient for you, your family, your entire life. Being stripped of the ability to work remotely. That's something which DOJ actually had been pretty progressive about, and people depend on the remote work because it's part of their commute. It's just like where you work. I would add to that, I think, a pretty high likelihood that this administration is not going to be very accommodating to people under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So that's another aspect of the work environment that they can make very hostile so that you wouldn't want to work there or you can't work there anymore. The other aspect is, as she mentions, basically being doxxed, like Elon Musk put out the names of people that he didn't like about climate issues and such, which in this day and age, you put those names out, enormous amount of danger and pressure and harassment can result from that. Some of the solutions that she proposes, and you should take a look at the article, it's interesting, it's rare to see a current employee or current DOJ employee writing something like this. She probably had to get some clearance issues, which Justice Alito doesn't need to do. He can write whatever he wants about anything. Some of the solutions she proposes: mental health support. Make sure those services are available to employees undergoing stress, that they're discounted services. Maybe discounts from data removal companies, like the folks that help manage reputations online. A lot of that is done for celebrities. If there are employees being harassed or at risk of harassment for where they work. And also pro bono, or I would add what they call low bono, meaning reduced fees for legal help if people actually, for example, are being fired, being disciplined at work, lose their jobs, or in the more extreme situation are actually being investigated or prosecuted. And she also says, have your local representatives promote legislation that protects civil servants. Gee, what an idea to protect the people that work for the government. And oppose very draconian bills. So it's a good article. The link's going to be put up here. I know there's a paywall there, so let me know, on Blue Sky if there's an issue, and I'll try and do it as a gift article, which I sometimes do. Some of these draconian bills that are mentioned, for example, there's one called the Strafe Act. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I think that's an interesting name because it kind of reminds me of, the strafing that planes do when attacking people on the ground. And it's an apropos name because it's really trying to attack career employees to make them do politics. So that act sounds like it's saying, oh, you have to not be a secret shadow government resistor. It's kind of the notion of being insubordinate or not doing your job. But what's really going on there is they want to be able to discipline employees if they think that they're politically incorrect. And, it's an interesting, again, turn of events where the right's always talking about the left is, talking about political correctness. This is the real political correctness. If you don't understand and don't follow the great leader, don't follow the regime, then you're politically incorrect, and we won't call it politically incorrect. In authoritarian governments, they don't say, oh, you're being prosecuted, you're in jail because you're politically incorrect. They say you did it because you did some crime. There's bribery, there's corruption, something amorphous, but they find some kind of violation to put you in jail for, or to discipline you in this case. So that's what an act like that is really about. Those are some of the things to watch out for as the Bondi DOJ gets going. Add to that, of course, that her top deputies are going to be Trump's personal lawyers, maybe Kash Patel as head of the FBI. And what you have is obviously very worrisome, very scary. But it's not even worrisome just because DOJ is going to be basically abusing its power, investigating and prosecuting who Trump doesn't like or wants to intimidate. Of course, the investigations themselves, even if they go nowhere, can be a great burden to people, both emotionally, psychologically, and financially. But also, really important, all the work DOJ won't be doing. They will not be doing lots of other things because they're going to be redeploying all their focus on this to please their leader, to please the regime. As a side note, just like Trump's much ballyhooed, we're going to start mass deportations, it takes so many people to do mass deportations. Alex Wagner mentioned tonight on her show that it would be the biggest redeployment of federal law enforcement people in her lifetime. So this is a microcosm of that. You're going to take all these people away from the focus of what they normally do in DOJ to be chasing down, policing their own employees, investigating the investigators, all these things. What won't be done? Protection of voting rights to further Republican election prospects. They're going to engage in more suppression, and the voting rights section is going to be totally undermined. They won't be able to be doing anything. They'll have no interest in doing anything. Probably less protection against police violence, which Trump in the past has applauded, using violence against people. No protection against fraud or bid rigging. When you have tech industrial oligarchs like Elon Musk making billions from being awarded federal governments, at the same time, he's going to be advising the government on who to make the awards of the contracts to. That's the full picture. 4 years where DOJ is not doing the work that it should be doing. What can we do? We can report on the wrongs that happen under this regime. What is DOJ doing that's an abuse of their power? We can report on the things that aren't being done. And you can let us know. We can report on it. We can tell legislators about it. Again, bring all that stuff into sunlight. We know what's coming, and what's coming is not just the abuse, but the abuse takes the form of what isn't being done that should be done as well. So that's it for now. We will talk to you soon, and keep those replies and comments coming. Really appreciate them, and try to get back to you when I can.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.